The island country of Cuba lies only 90 miles from Florida. Cuba's communist government has long troubled the U.S. This is largely due to the influence of Cuba's leader for most of the past 50 years, Fidel Castro. In the 20th century, Cuba was controlled by dictator Fulgencio Batista. Batista had held power with the backing of the U.S. government. American business interests, notably the United Fruit Company, owned much of the land. Castro, trained as a lawyer, sought to overthrow Batista and expel the Americans. His revolution forever changed the face of Cuba. Fidel Castro was born in 1926. His father, a Spanish immigrant, grows wealthy selling sugarcane to the United Fruit Company. But Fidel is drawn to radical politics. In 1952, he discusses his plans with his younger brother, Raul. Drake walks in a few minutes late.
The government is corrupt. It sells the best farmland to the Yankees and grows fat on the profits. Hey, Drake.
Hey guys, don't worry, we started from the bottom, now we're here. We should be proud of all that we accomplished.
That's so true, Drake. The Americans drink and gamble in casinos run by their criminal gangs, while ordinary Cubans wallow in poverty. That's why we need to fight.
I'm going to run for the House of Representatives. The people must at last control their own destiny. I will be the voice of the Cuban people.
Good luck. But I heard the elections might be slightly delayed this year due to all the rebellions going on.
You got it, man.
When Batista cancels the election, Castro dedicates himself to the revolution. On July 26, 1953, he leads more than 100 men in an attack on the Moncada army barracks in the city of Santiago. The revolt is a disaster. Half of the rebels are killed in the attack or murdered in prison. In court, Castro defends himself.
Batista stays in power over a stack of corpses and a sea of blood. Liberty is not begged for, but won with the blade of a machete. Go ahead and condemn me. It does not matter. History will absolve me.
After speaking for more than 2 hours, Castro is found guilty and sentenced to prison along with Raul and other rebels. Drake escapes, but
I got a lot of enemies. I got a lot of people trying to drain me from this energy, but I will still fight for what is right.
In 1955, the Castro brothers are released from prison and go to Mexico. There, they met a fellow revolutionary from Argentina, a young doctor named Ernesto Che Guevara. Together, they formed the 26 movement and return to Cuba with a band of rebels. But Batista's army ambushes them. Only a dozen or so escape alive to the remote Sierra Maestra mountains. Che does get hurt, but he still goes on.
It is a miracle that we made it. Only a few of us are left. Where do we go from here? We will organize in these mountains. Look, here's the home of a campesino. We can depend on him for kindness. From then on, we can start recruiting people.
The campesino feeds and shelters the ragtag band.
The name Fidel Castro has become legend in these mountains. We heard how you stood up to the dictator Batista. For too long, greed and power has ruled Cuba. Now it's time for a new leader. Thank you for your brave actions.
The saying is true, the people are the sea, and we revolutionaries are the fish who swim in it. I'm just doing what is right.
So let us be sharks and take over Cuba.
The rebels open a medical clinic. Che Guevara is the first doctor many of the peasants have seen. The rebels win the trust of the people and attack recruits. They also need arms, which they plan to steal from the army barracks in La Plata. On the way there, they are approached by a friendly informant.
Barracks has 10 guards. Careful, here comes Tijo Osorio, the brutal foreman of the sugar plantation.
He is one of the worst exploiters of the campesinos.
Castro approaches him.
Halt. We are the rural guard investigating security problems here.
Well, we have plenty of troublemakers. That Fidel Castro is the worst. Death to Castro.
If I find him, I'll shoot him. You have my word.
Not if I get there first, and I can do it. Look at these boots. I took them off a good-for-nothing I killed. By the way, the security at La Plata is very weak. I'll show you where.
Excellent. Perhaps we can even tie you up and pretend you're a prisoner. We're bringing you in. Manolo, you know what to do with the prisoner.
The attack on the barracks is the rebels' first big success. The legend of Fidel Castro grows, and his name begins to be feared by the enemy. In 1958, the rebels number about 300 and control much of the Sierra Maestra. That summer, Batista sends 10,000 soldiers to get rid of them at a meeting of the rebel commanders.
Batista is desperate. The Americans have at last grown disgusted with corruption and stopped giving him money.
He can't defeat us here. We have come too far. We need to fight back. Harder.
Indeed, Batista's army loses badly in the mountains. Many of Batista's soldiers do not even want to fight. Now aided by supporters in the cities, the rebels push toward the capital, Havana. On New Year's Eve, Batista throws a party at the presidential palace. After dinner, he addresses the crowd.
Friends, I'm sorry to say that the rebels are closing in. We must leave immediately. Except for you, Bob. You are staying.
Kay?
Sorry, sacrifices must be made.
The dictator flees that night to the Dominican Republic. As word gets out, Cubans celebrate in the streets of Havana.
We finally got the boot of the dictator off our neck.
Now our beautiful beaches will be open to the people, not just the rich. Hashtag Viva la Revolucion.
I can't wait to report on this story. News of Castro's victory electrifies the country. When he enters the capital on January 8th, people clog the streets to see him.
Viva Fidel! Viva Fidel!
Reporters from all over the world race to Cuba to bear witness to the Aztec rebel leader. Mr. Castro, will you now return to the civilian life?
My obligation is to the people. I sincerely have no ambition for power, money, nothing. Only to serve my people. My obligation is to the people. I sincerely have no ambition for power, money, nothing. Only to serve my country.
But soon Castro is wielding power with an iron fist. Within 3 months, many Batista officials are put on mass trials in stadiums. Some 500 of them are executed. For other Cubans, especially the wealthy and educated, this is ominous.
It's good they got rid of Batista, but we need democracy. Castro is embracing communism. Will he be a dictator like Batista?
Today, soldiers came into our beach club and said, "Get out, this belongs to the revolution now."
Vamonos, let's go.
These bandits are going to rob us of everything we worked for. I'm going to Florida.
In the next few months, a steady stream of Cubans leave their country, most for the U.S. The new Cuban government orders rents reduce. It sends thousands of youths into the countryside to teach people how to read. It also confiscates sugar plantations owned by U.S. companies and gives the land to the peasants. Defying the U.S., Castro makes an alliance with the Soviet Union. Showdown with the U.S. is coming.
President Eisenhower refuses to sell us oil. So what? We don't need them anymore. The Soviets will trade us oil for sugar.
The Yankee imperialists don't want Latin America to determine its own fate. Now American oil companies refuse to process the oil at their refineries on our soil.
Then we will seize their oil companies and all other American properties as well. Let them stop us.
Yes, let's take back our land. Let's do it for the lulz.
Alarmed at these actions, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower instructs the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, to begin secret actions against Castro. On April 17, 1961, under the direction of the U.S. President John F. Kennedy, an army of Cuban exiles trained by the CIA tries to invade Cuba at the Bay of Pigs. The invasion is a disaster for the U.S. More than 1,000 men are taken prisoner.
Let those who oppose us beware. Within the revolution, everything is permitted. Outside the revolution, nothing.
Translation: America sucks, Cuba rules.
After the Bay of Pigs and a wave of U.S.-backed attacks, Castro orders a crackdown on opponents. More than 35,000 people are arrested. It is in the start of what will become a dictatorial hold on power by Castro. The stage was set for a long stalemate between the U.S. and Cuba. After the U.S. imposed an economic embargo, Cuba relied on Soviet aid. Through the decades, tensions persisted, seeking freedom and economic opportunity. More than 1 million people have fled Cuba for the U.S. The already suffering Cuban economy lost $6 billion annually after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, but Castro survived. Only age and illness caused him to finally hand over the power to his brother in 2008.